All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we talk a little bit about the NFL draft. We'll have our mock draft 3.0, and the focus of this one is going to be the defensive front seven. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. And we, of course, are brought to you by our good friends at Mancini's. That's right. Mancini's is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show, and there it is. All right. Mancini's Sleep World is a proud sponsor. They offer 120-night guarantee with a range of brands and price points. With Mancini's, you get free next-day delivery. Click the link below or go to sleepworld.com and find a bed that works for you. Whether you shop online or visit in-store at any of Mancini's locations, all you got to do to save 10% is use the code KRUG10, K-R-U-E-G 10, and you'll get 10% off your mattress purchase. Once again, type in KRUG10 at any Mancini's location or online at sleepworld.com, and you will get 10% off your mattress purchase. Thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Niners. We're going to get into our mock draft 3.0. I want to share the screen and play a little soundbite from our friend Matt Mayoko. This is via the Coach Yak Twitter page or Twitter site or his Twitter. And here's Mayoko. And I'm just going to play you the first minute. But it's just really interesting to me because Matt initially, when the whole thing came out about Myles Garrett, I think he said what a lot of people said, which was that, the 49ers are kind of known to want to, be in the deal flow, and I'm sure they'll, figure out if this is a fit for them. And I, at the time, was like, you know what? This is not the right time for the 49ers to go all in on one guy. They went all in on Hargrave. It didn't work out. They went all in on Trey Lance. It didn't work out. When you've done that back-to-back times, you're a lot thinner. Now they're a lot thinner than they've been in the past, and they need depth. So here's Matt weighing in. He's now kind of saying kind of what I was saying. We'll play a minute of this, and then we'll react, and we'll get into our mock draft. Here's Matt Mayoko on his YouTube via Coach Yak's Twitter.
Myles Garrett. And I mean, the more I think about it, I don't know that it makes a whole lot of sense for the 49ers from the standpoint of the draft pick compensation is one thing, and there are reasons why it does not behoove the 49ers to give up draft pick compensation. I do think that the roster was set back immensely by the Trey Lance trade and giving up those first-round draft picks. Yes, they got Brock Purdy the next draft, and that ended up being kind of a organization saver, getting Brock Purdy. But the 49ers missed some opportunities to add some really high-level talent through that trade to move up to number 3 in the 2021 draft to select Trey Lance. What it's also done is it's kind of stripped the 49ers of some opportunities to add good players, defensive linemen, for instance, maybe an offensive lineman, at controlled costs.
So that really, and he goes on and talks more about it there, but that to me is kind of a change in, I don't want to say a change in opinion from Matt, because initially I think he was just along the lines of like everybody else. Hey, the Niners are probably going to look into it. He wasn't like, he was like, oh, they're going to get Myles Garrett. But it is interesting that, he's very close to, a lot of the people inside the Niners. And it is interesting that he's like, hey, you know what? It's not, he's kind of putting out the feeler there. Myles Garrett might not be a fit. Now, we all love Myles Garrett. Let's just, before people start going, Krug, what, you don't like Myles Garrett? No, Myles Garrett's awesome. He is awesome. He's the prototype. He's the best. And if it's not Myles Garrett, if it's Max Crosby, he's fantastic as well. But once again, the Niners traded a lot of draft capital to get Trey Lance. It didn't work out. The Brock Purdy selection saved the regime and saved the 49ers a lot of embarrassment as a regime. but you still wasted a lot of picks and so you don't have those guys on your roster, as Matt just alluded to there at the end. Combine that with the pursuit of Javon Hargrave, where you depleted your depth. You said goodbye to Samson Ebukam and Jimmy Ward and Aziz Al Shair and several good defensive players, Hassan Ridgeway. They had some really good depth that they kind of parted ways with to go all in on Hargrave. And they gave Hargrave a big amount of money. And what did he do? He didn't do much. He played 22 games. He had 9 sacks. He was all right. He was good, but not great. He was solid, but not impactful. And the ultimate was that he himself is not very good against the run, and they got rid of some of their best run defenders. And then they looked up and they're like, whoa, we got rid of a bunch of run defenders and we added Hargrave. He's not great against the run. And then suddenly the 49ers were not good against the run. And the Niners the last couple of years have struggled badly to stop the run. So overall, here we are. It's now February 15th. We're about a month away from free agency in the NFL, and there's a lot of whispers about Myles Garrett, a lot of whispers about Max Crosby, that Mark Davis would take a bounty of picks and he would move Crosby, that maybe the Browns would move Myles Garrett, even though they say they don't want to. But either way, I think if you look at what trades for big-time players in the past have gone for, I was looking up the Khalil Mack trade. He went for like 2 number ones and like 4 other picks. I mean, it was like a 6-pick deal. If you're going to get Crosby from the Raiders, Mark Davis hates the Niners. Whatever the price is for the rest of the league, it's higher for the Niners. So you're going to have to trade, my guess is, 4 to 6 picks, including multiple number ones, to land Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. And I just think it's too much. It's too much. So let's do a mock draft 3.0, and let's not do that. Let's not go all in on one defensive lineman. And then the latest talk is that maybe Joey Bosa could be a cap casualty with the Chargers, and maybe the Niners could just sign Joey Bosa and not have to trade any draft picks for a bookend. That's an upgrade on Leonard Floyd. So let's do a mock draft 3.0. And the thing about the draft is, and there's different. We've done different kinds of mock drafts. I did one with John Chapman the other day where we went only offense. Okay. But if you look at the offensive side of the ball and the Niners' needs, I think there's a reasonable chance that they could fill their needs on offense, largely through the draft or through free agency, I should say. So they need a number 2 quarterback. Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco. I think those would be great number 2 quarterbacks. The 49ers need another running back, I think. If you want to go veteran running back, you got a guy like Kenneth Gainwell, who I think is a really good back, who probably is going to leave Philadelphia. If you want a tight end, I really like Tommy Tremble. I think Tommy Tremble could be a really nice tight end. If you needed a receiver, and they do, with speed, Rondale Moore, Tutu Atwell, McCole Hardman, to name a few. So when I look at the Niners, and even on the offensive line, I mean, I think it's going to cost you, but if you want to replace Drew Dahlman or replace Jake Brendel with Drew Dahlman, Dahlman's a really solid offensive lineman, and he's played in this system, and his dad played for the Niners. So I'm just looking at the Niners on the offensive side of the ball, and whether it's center or wide receiver or tight end or running back or quarterback, the offensive needs, I think there's some good players available that might be affordable in the free agent market. So let's just say, for the sake of mock draft 3.0, that the Niners can solve a lot of their needs on the offensive side of the ball in free agency. And they could devote all, if not all, almost all of their mock draft to the defense. What would it look like? And I think you guys are going to be pretty pleased when we go through this and we see what it looks like. So let's start. Let's start this right now. We'll do our mock draft 3.0. And once again, we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, and we're also brought to you by Mancini's. Thanks to Mancini's for being a proud sponsor of the Krueger Show. All right, let's take a look. We're going to go NFL Mock Draft Simulator, and we're going to go Niners. We signaled fast. We'll just no crazy adjustments. We'll enter the draft room, and we're thinking defense, and we're thinking front seven. We're thinking that we're going to be able to do a lot of our offensive improvements for the most part in free agency. We'll look at offensive players in this draft. It's not a defense only draft, but we're going to try to make it as a defensive heavy draft and see how good of a defensive line can the Niners draft if they don't trade a bunch of picks for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. So let's start this thing right now. Niners pick 11th, and let's see where it goes. Okay. And we will consider trades because trade downs are possible. Now, the first one is the Colts are calling. They said, here, give us your first. We'll give you our first next year, and we'll give you a seventh and a fifth next year and a seventh this year. No. Sorry. Cowboys called. They're offering their first and their fourth next year and the third round pick this year. No. And the Browns have called saying, here's our first, second, and third next year. Okay, but that's next year. No. So I'm going to reject all of those. So now here we are at 7 or at 11. And there's some really good offensive players that have fallen to the Niners. Tetaroa McMillan, Ashton Gianti, Tyler Warren. They're all pretty good players there. Jalen Walker, the Butkus Award winner, is an edge rusher. He's also a really special linebacker. He's there. The offensive tackle is there if you want to go offensive tackle to start. There's that. But I like the idea of either staying here or trading down a couple spots and going for Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan is really, really solid. Ole Miss, 5-star out of high school, started at A&M, transferred to Ole Miss. He's got great footwork. I think he was like second in the nation in tackles for loss. He's really a good player. He's very good against the run, but he also has quickness and can get to the quarterback. So I'm taking Walter Nolan right there. I'm starting my draft with Walter Nolan. Now, in an ideal world, I trade down from 11 to 15, but they didn't give me that offer there. So here we are. We're now at 43. I can make this trade with the Chargers for their second, fourth, and fifth next year. I don't want to give a bunch of picks. I don't want to go into next year. I'll deal with next year. This one's interesting. You can move back 7 spots with Seattle. They'll give you a 6th and next year's 5th. That's still not high enough. Say no to that. And then the Colts have called and they said, we want your second. We'll go give you our 4th, our 5th, our 6th, our 7th, and our second next year, which would be intriguing because that is a lot of picks, but I'm going to reject. Okay, so now let's look once again who's on the board here. And we're looking for mostly defense, though I do see Trey Harris here. And I really like Trey Harris. So I could go with the one offensive player being Trey Harris, the receiver. The Niners are going to need a receiver as soon as they say goodbye to Debo, and they can't afford T. Higgins. So it's a really deep draft for defensive players. And so I think even though I'm going almost an exclusive defensive draft, I think I may go offense a couple times, and I love Trey Harris. So I'm going to go Trey Harris. I'm going to start Ole Miss, double Ole Miss to start. Now I'm at pick 75. All right. And I'm still thinking about defense or maybe an offensive tackle if there's one that I really like. Xavier Watts is a very good interceptor of the football. Maxwell Hairston is a really good corner. No doubt about that. Darius Alexander from Toledo had a very good Senior Bowl. Let's look further down the list here. Demetrius Knight, the linebacker from South Carolina, can really, really run. I mean, he can really run. He's a fantastic mover. So you know what? I think he's special. I'm going to take Demetrius Knight, the linebacker from South Carolina. And I like some linebackers later in the draft. I may go linebacker again, but I really do like him, Demetrius Knight. I think he's a difference-making linebacker. Okay, so now Dallas is called. We're at pick number 99. They're offering their 4th, 5th, and 7th next year. No. And then Green Bay's called, and they're offering a 4th this year to move down 24 spots, and they'll give us their 5th next year. No, we're not doing that. Okay, so now let's take a look who's on the board. We've gone Ole Miss twice and South Carolina. We got 3 guys from the SEC, but we're thinking defense again. We're thinking defense. Barrett Carter's a fast linebacker, but I just took a fast linebacker. Denzel Burke is a good corner, like him quite a bit. Jordan Phillips is a really athletic defensive tackle. Noel Williams from Cal is a really interesting player because he's a high percentage interceptor. He's got great ball skills. Joshua Farmer from Florida State's a good player. Jacob Parrish is a really good corner from K-State. David Walker and Antoine Powell Ryland are interesting players. I like Ty Robinson here. Ty Robinson's 6'6", 310, Nebraska. This guy's a beast, and the motor just revs and revs and revs. And we need, I'm looking for another. I would like to come away with 3 or 4 defensive linemen in this draft. So I like Ty Robinson. I'm taking him right there. 119 or 99th overall. So now we're at 112. Jaguars have called. So we'll give you our 4 and our 7 next year. We'll move down to the 6. You can move down to the 6th round. No. The Eagles called, offering a 5th round pick this year and a 5th round pick next year. No. Okay, these deals are easy to reject. That's for sure. Okay, so now, what am I looking for? I've got 2 defensive tackles. I've got a linebacker. I'm looking for an edge rusher, and here he is, Oluwafemi Oladejo from UCLA. Started at Cal. I love Oladejo. Gotta have him. I mean, he's a tone-setting edge rusher. He's fantastic. So now you're at pick 138. All right, and we're still looking defense, okay? I could go corner here. I love Jacob Parrish from K-State. He would be really solid. But here, I'm going this guy right here, J.J. Pegues from Ole Miss. This, once again, I watched a lot of Ole Miss football. This guy played fullback in short yardage. He could replace Juice. He could be a two-way player. He could be a defensive tackle. He's 325 pounds and athletic as hell. Super fast, super athletic. Really kind of came out of nowhere and had a great year. J.J. Pegues. So now we're at pick 4. We're in the 4th round, pick 139. Seahawks are calling, offering 2-6 the next year's 4th. No, reject that. Carolina's calling, saying, hey, we'll give you you can move back 2 spots and we'll give you a 7th next year. Why not? We can do that. We can move back 2 spots. So now we move back 2 spots. Now we're at 141. The Seahawks called. They're saying, here's our 6 and our 7 and a 4th next year. I'll reject that. Dallas is offering a 5th and a 7th and next year's 5th to move down 20 or almost 30 spots. I would consider that, but no. And now here's one I will do. This is the Chargers calling, and they're saying, you have pick 141. We'll give you 159 and 157. You can have 2 picks later in the 5th round for a higher pick in the 5th round, and we'll throw in our 6th round pick next year. I'm going to do that one because I want an extra player or 2. An extra player or 2, if you know what you're doing, could be a very impactful thing. So now you're at 159. The Eagles called and said, here's a 4 and a 6 next year. No. Ravens called and said, will you move down to the 6th round if we give you our 6th and 7th next year? No. So now we're here at 159. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 spots, 6 picks left. And we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive players so far. And we got one receiver. Okay, so let's take a look at the board. Who's the best players on the board? Stutzman's very productive linebacker from Oklahoma, but I don't think he runs well enough. Kobe Bryant is a really good aggressive corner. I like him a lot. He's pretty skinny, though. If I wanted to go corner, I could go corner right there with him. Let's look for Malachi Moore would give you a safety. That's pretty solid. Mello Dotson plays opposite Kobe Bryant at Kansas. He's big. He's like 6'3", 6'4" corner. Kaiser's a very productive linebacker from Notre Dame. But now we're moving down. Now we're in that part of the draft in the 150 range where beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And not everybody has these players rated the same. So you got to look at more prospects. And there's some good offensive players here. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, Devin Neal, good offensive running back for sure. I like Riley Leonard as a quarterback prospect. There's no question he's got some talent. Brashard Smith is explosive from SMU. What a player he is. Bashul Tutin is a good running back and a return man. You got Jake Majors, who's a starting center at Texas. He's a pretty good player. Um, so we're moving Jackson Slater, the guard from Sac State. Do you go guard here? Howard Cross, the third, whose dad is Howard Cross, the former New York Giant tight end. He's definitely a one gap penetrator. He's a pretty good interior rusher, kind of smaller. Jackson Hawes, a very smart tight end. Tyler Batty, though. Okay, so now we're getting into some guys. Um, let's look further down the list. I like this kid, Tyler Batty from BYU. He just plays so damn hard, and he comes flying off the edge. He's a little bit bigger than Oladejo, so now I like Batty quite a bit. He's got some good juice in his pass rush. Now we're at 177. Chiefs have offered their fourth and seventh next year. No. The Raiders have offered their fourth, fifth, and seventh next year. No. And then the Chargers have offered to move from 177 down to 201, and they'll give you a 6, a 7, and their fourth next year. Now that is intriguing. That is intriguing because I'm going 3 for 1 there, and I'm getting a fourth round pick. Now let's put that away for just a second. You already have a pretty deep draft class. But man, I want to kill this with numbers, and some of these guys are not gonna make it. That's just the way it is. So do you load up and trade back for more volume and move out of the fifth round? And I think I will. I think I will. I think that's too good of an offer. So let's go back to that offer. Let's see if I can get it up here. Where is it? Where is that offer? Let's see. Where is it? Do I not see it anymore? Maybe I can see them when I do it. I don't see where you can still take the offer. I might have bypassed my opportunity to take the to take the trade. So maybe I just have to pick. Okay, that's fine too. I don't have to make the trade. Wait a second. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Offers up here, way up here. Okay, so now I'm moving back, 15 spots or so, or 30 spots or so, but I'm getting 3 for 1, and I'm getting 4 for 1 because I'm getting a fourth round next year. So I'm doing that. I'm doing that trade because I want those 3 extra players. I really think that if you know what you're doing, you want more picks on day 3. If you don't know what you're doing, then you want to cheat and get as many high picks. Or if you don't like a bunch of players late, maybe you don't want to trade back. Or if you have an incredibly deep roster, but the Niners need their depth draft. And so I'm gonna make that trade. Now I'm at 189. I can move back if I want with the Lions, no, and I can move back with the Texans or give up this pick for 2 picks next year, no. So now let's take a look. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the corner spot. Who's at the corner? Mello Dotson's there. He's a pretty good player. Fentrell Cypress from Florida State's not bad. There's some couple other corners that I like here further down the list. B.J. Mays, Shamari Simmons, good Carlin Vigors from Louisiana Monroe. He's a good player. It's tough. Okay, now let's look at the safety spot. Safety's interesting too. There's Malachi Moore from Alabama. I don't love the Alabama players that much because they sometimes you can't tell which of the Alabama players are really good and which ones aren't. All right, I think we're in that spot where the linebackers are really good. So let's take a look at the linebackers, and I think there's some good ones on the board here. Shamar James from Florida can really run. Eugene Asante from Auburn can really run. I like this guy, David Benda from Texas. Love David Benda. And now I've got an offer to move back for 201. I'm going to reject that. We got enough picks now. I love Chandler Martin, the linebacker from Memphis. Undersized, but he's an amazing player. So I'm going linebacker. So right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 players on our front 7. And I mean, right now, I mean, let's take a look more at the defensive linemen because this is a really defensive line heavy draft, and we'll look at some of the edge rushers as well. This guy from Boise State has got great talent. He's plays super hard. Jamare Caldwell, I thought was moving amazingly at 340 pounds. I might have to go Amari Caldwell. Yaya Black is a good player from Iowa. But these two guys right here, I got to have them. Tonka Hemingway from South Carolina, interior pass rusher who just gets after it. And then Eric Gregory from Arkansas, just a tremendous player. Tremendous player. Really good defensive tackle, very, very talented. All right, let's look at all and just see if anybody offensively has fallen down the board. There's probably going to be a running back here that we really, really like, just simply because the running backs are super, super loaded. And there's also might be a tackle here that, there might be a decent tackle here. There's a couple tackles that I really like that are day 3 tackles. Buchanan, the linebacker from Cal's interesting. Man, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt's interesting. There's a lot of interesting players at this point. We're truly in the beauty in the eye of the beholder era or area of the draft. Okay, so we got a lot of defense. We got a lot of defensive front seven. We got linebackers. We got 3 linebackers, so we're good at linebacker. We've drafted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 defensive linemen. So now, let's look at running back and offensive tackle. Let's go up here and look at running back and offensive tackle. Running back, there's going to be some good ones on the board because it's just such a deep draft. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt was the MVP of the Shrine game. Really like him quite a bit. Mario Anderson is a bull for Memphis, really strong. Montrell Johnson is a good running back for Florida. Ulysses Bentley IV is a good running back for Ole Miss. We're going to set a record here for Ole Miss running backs or Ole Miss players drafted. Jalen White from Georgia Southern is a really good running back. The Niners talked to this guy, Trayshawn Ward. So there's a bunch of Josh Williams from LSU is a solid back. Okay, so I don't see a difference maker back, though I like that Krosky Merritt. Let's look at the offensive tackles. Holland Pierce from Rutgers is just a gigantic human being. And J.C. Davis from Illinois is also a tremendous player. I'm going to go J.C. Davis here from Illinois. I watched him a couple times this year. I really love J.C. Davis. Just a tremendous player. I mean, he played right tackle. He just caved in the entire side of the line. I think he's going to be a very good NFL offensive lineman. Okay, so let's look at the interior line just because there are some interesting guys. Drew Kendall from Boston College. Marcus Ware. I think I'm going Marcus Ware. I think Marcus Ware can be a good interior player, a guard or center. I thought he looked good in the practices for one of the All-Star games. And let's look further down the list on the offensive line because we got one more pick left. Okay, I don't see anybody there that I really love. I was looking for the North Carolina kid, but he got drafted already. Okay, so now let's take a look at all. Who's the best player on the board? We're at pick number 255. We've got a couple offensive linemen. We took them late. We have a wide receiver. It's probably the best value here is probably running back. Jalen Conyers, the tight end from Texas Tech, the ASU transfer. He's really solid. Shamar James, I really like him, the linebacker from Florida. I think I'm going with this Krosky. Well, let me see. I think I'm going Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I like the running back from. So there you go. So we went with almost a defensive only type draft. So we didn't trade our picks, and we kept them. We traded down for some extra picks. We wound up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 picks. So we didn't go down and trade down tons, but we wound up with a couple extra picks. In this draft, I mean, to me, if this is the way this goes, I'd be thrilled. I do think you could trade down from 11 and maybe get a second round pick to move down, or a second, third round pick to move down. I don't think you have to take Walter Nolan at 11. I think you could probably move to 15 and he would be, for sure there. The other guy that I really love, if you trade back and for some reason Nolan went in front of you, is Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant for Michigan in the Ohio State game just totally dominated. And he just looked like a Pro Bowl NFL player. I think Kenneth Grant's going to be really, really special. Well, I know some people are like, oh, well, Mozzie Smith was supposed to be special. And yeah, well, he's not Mozzie Smith. He's way better. But look at what the haul is. So here, you got Walter Nolan. You got a really good receiver in Trey Harris that can step in and play right away. I think that's exciting. Then you got a super fast linebacker, Demetrius Knight, who, by the way, is related to Gladys Knight from Gladys Knight and the Pips. He's also an academic All-American, and he was a team captain at South Carolina, even though he was only a one-year player there. He was a transfer. So I love Demetrius Knight. That was a great pick. Look at me. I'm patting myself on the back. Ty Robinson, I see a Keith Millard type. Just a badass. Just a badass inside. 6'6", 310. Plays so damn hard. And then Olufemi Oladejo, I think is going to be a Pro Bowl edge rusher. I love him off the edge. I think he's also a tone-setting player. Pegues gives you a two-way player. He can play inside. And what I love about Pegues is he's big enough to play play like a two-gap scheme, but he's also quick enough to be a one-gap penetrator. So he's actually a one-gap penetrating tackle with a ton of size and great speed. And he was Ole Miss's short yardage back. I mean, they handed him the ball on the goal line. So, I mean, this guy might be your replacement for Juice. Tyler Batty is just a defensive end that plays so hard. I mean, he really plays hard. The motor is just revving constantly. David Benda is I think a Pro Bowl linebacker that's only here because, and this F grade on these. So these are, I guarantee you that if the Niners go with these three guys, they will not be Fs. But David Benda is, the only downside for David Benda is he's 5'11", 235. If he was 6'1", 255, he'd go in the second round. He can fly. He makes plays. He had an interception in the national championship game. Benda is big time. I really like him. Chandler Martin is the captain at Memphis. What a great player he is. He just plays so damn hard. And he's a tremendous player. I mean, this guy can run and hit. Super productive. Very safe pick. Tonka Hemingway is a one-gap penetrating tackle who gets after the quarterback. If the Niners are gonna have a good defensive line, they have to come at you in waves, and they got to have some interior rushers who are real difference makers. Think of when some of their other lines, they've had guys like Ronald Blair and Arden Key. They've had some guys who could really rush the passer in a rotation from the inside. Tonka Hemingway is about 280 pounds, and he is a tremendous pass rusher. He's not a two-gapper. He's a one-gap penetrator, but in their wide nine, I think he fits. Eric Gregory, I just think is a steal. I think this guy should go in the third round, and he's going to be there late in the draft. Arkansas produces some really good defensive players, and this guy's one of them. He's really good. Love Eric Gregory. J.C. Davis, we waited a long time to fill the offensive tackle spot, but this guy went to McClymonds in Oakland. He's really athletic and he's nasty. He will finish you. He's a destroyer in the run game. I think this guy could be a plug and play starter at right tackle despite getting him at 232. I think he could give Colton McKivitz a run for that right tackle spot. And if he doesn't start at right tackle, he could be your swing tackle. I really like him. He could replace Jalen Moore as your swing tackle. He has played both the left and the right. Marcus Ware did an amazing job in the all-star practices at keeping a lot of these defenders in front of him. He doesn't take a lot of wasted steps. He's got a strong upper body. He's got a strong anchor. This guy played right tackle at Montana State, but in the pros, I think he's a center. And I think this guy could step in right away and be a starting center for the 49ers in front of Jake Brendel immediately. And then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I think you got to go running back with the last pick in this draft. Why? Just because there's so many good ones. I mean, and there was 5 or 6 or 7 others that they could have gone with instead. But I really love this kid. He's fast. He was the MVP of the Shrine game. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He does run a little upright, so he could take some hits, but man, he's a good-looking running back. And if you don't love him, if you love one of these other running backs, you want to go Montrell Johnson or, Quentin Cooley or one of these guys, that's fine. But I think running back's the value there at 255. So, it was a draft where we had 14 picks, and outside of one, two, three, we took three offensive players. We took four offensive players and 10 defensive players. And that, look at this line. You've added you've added Walter Nolan and Ty Robinson and JJ Pegues inside, and Eric Gregory and Tonka Hemingway. So, I mean, and who can play inside, outside. You really added a lot. And then off the edge, you added Oladejo, who I think, and Tyler Batty. So you had a couple edge rushers as well, and you got three linebackers. So, you didn't get a corner, you didn't get a safety, but man, you upped your front seven with tremendous talent, tremendous speed, and now you can play these guys in a rotation. Now you're going to have a deep defensive line. You're going to be able to come at teams in waves. The other thing that I really like about this draft, you got some defensive tackles, some big guys up front, but then you also got a ton of speed on the second level. I mean, Demetrius Knight, David Benda, and Chandler Martin on that second level, those guys all run and hit. Tremendous speed, tremendous speed. You have just added so much speed at linebacker, and you've got a big, deep, talented defensive front. So I love it. I love it. And you still got Trey Harris, who I think could start, for Ayuk in week one. I think Harris is that good. He could start opposite, I'm probably Pearsall and JJ, right? I mean, the Niners need a receiver of note, and they got one in this draft. They got a defensive-heavy draft, but they still clicked a couple of hit a couple of their offensive needs with a receiver, with a couple offensive linemen, and a running back. So overall, this is, I think, one of the better mock drafts we've done. Mock Draft 3.0 is in the books there, and it's defensive heavy with a lot of emphasis at linebacker and the defensive line. But you know what? The Niners need to inject their defensive front seven with a ton of talent, and this draft did exactly that. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. And, of course, thanks to our friends at Mancini's. Once again, Mancini's Sleep World is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. They offer a 120-night guarantee with a range of brands and price points. I'm loving my Mancini's bed. With Mancini's, you get free next-day delivery. Click the link below or go to sleepworld.com and find a bed that works for you. Whether you shop online or visit in store, use the code KRUG10 and you'll get 10% off. That's KRUG10, and you'll get 10% off at any Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. And, of course, thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.